back, class. In this unit, we are going to talk about Unit 6. We are going to discuss the ins and outs of photosynthesis. In our first lesson, we're just going to give a general overview of photosynthesis just so we can understand some introductory information before we get into the nitty-gritty and the intricate parts of photosynthesis. I want to start off talking about why photosynthesis is important. If I draw the Earth down here and our atmosphere, the Earth is a closed system, which means that everything that's used in the Earth sort of stays in the Earth. So all the products that's used, all the carbon, all the nitrogen, all the phosphorus, everything else is used in the Earth and it stays in the Earth. The only thing that is an input into our Earth system is the sunlight. So the sunlight is really our only input of energy source into this planet. Well, the only way that we really can harness this is by plants and by photosynthesis. So the energy that's available for life really originates with the sun, and the only way that sun's energy is harnessed is through photosynthesis. So all life on this planet needs an input of energy. Photosynthesis is the only way the energy gets into the Earth system. And without photosynthesis, life as we know it would not exist on this planet. We would not have the incredible diversity and abundance of life that we see on this planet today. Talk a little bit about light. So first thing I want to tell you is that light comes in little packets called photons. So when we do science experiments, we realize that light travels in these little packets, and we call these packets photons. We also know from doing other experiments that light travels in waves. So it has this sort of duality, we call it, the particle-wave duality of light. It acts both like a particle and a wave, which is really sort of an interesting phenomenon for us as scientists to try to understand how light works. And the big thing is that the energy of light, or the energy of photons, is determined by wavelength. So if I look at a wave here, the wavelength is the space between crests. So this would be our wavelength here of this wave. And the shorter the wavelength, the more energy that light has, or that wave has. These waves, light is a part of this big spectrum called the electromagnetic spectrum, and it includes a lot of things that we're familiar with. It includes things like gamma rays up here. These are super high energy, so it goes from highest energy up here, and then as you go down it decreases in energy. So gamma rays and X-rays, and they can damage skin tissue because they are so high energy. And then we get to ultraviolet, and here's that visible spectrum, infrared, thermal, microwaves, and then if we get down here we have our radio and TV waves at the bottom. Okay, the visible light spectrum. Visible light is just a tiny portion of this huge electromagnetic spectrum. So visible light is only a small portion, and it has wavelengths as well. So the shortest wavelength, or the most highest energy, is the violet light. So the most energy available for plants is going to be in this violet light spectrum, and the least amount of energy is in the red. So it decreases as you go this way. Now, a pigment. A pigment is a molecule that absorbs light. So light is captured by chloroplasts and pigment molecules, and each pigment molecule captures a slightly different wavelength of light. And we'll look at this in the picture.
Gavin Singer, please report to the choir room. Gavin Singer, please report to the choir room.
Okay, so if we look at chlorophyll B, it absorbs a lot in this sort of violet to blue range. And then chlorophyll A absorbs a lot in the violet, blue, and red range. So you can see these are absorption. Where the peaks are, that's where they absorb the most light in. So right here I look at chlorophyll B and I can see that it absorbs a lot in the blue light. If you notice down here that a lot of light is not absorbed in the green light, and that's the light that we see. It's reflected back into our eyes, and that's why plants appear green. Here's a couple of more extra pictures of this idea. Now there's one other one on here. It shows the carotenoids. And if you notice, this dashed line carotenoids comes down here and it bottoms out in the red and orange. So what we see in the fall is we see the chlorophylls go away in the leaf, and all that we're left with is carotenoids. So we see red and orange and things like that. Okay, I want to just review a chloroplast real quick with you. Before moving on here. So the chloroplast has that outer membrane. It has a membrane on the inside, an inner membrane, and then it has a space in between these two membranes. It's got that inner membrane space. And then there's some fluid on the inside of the inner membrane, and this fluid is called stroma. Now, the stroma is surrounding these things called granum, which are these stacks of flattened discs that a lot of photosynthesis is going to take place in. And these one disc is called a thylakoid. So a granum is a stack of these thylakoids. All right, if I look at the equation for photosynthesis, photosynthesis is a cellular process using sunlight to make carbohydrates. So we're going to take carbon dioxide and water, and using light, we're going to generate glucose and oxygen. Now, I do want to touch on the fact that we're not making energy. You don't see any energy being created in this equation. So we're not generating any energy from the plant. So photosynthesis does not give energy to plants.
Lucia Olson, Erica Douglas, Martha Matson, Allison Tepping, Devin Carroll, Michael Ludwig, Amanda Hensel, Jackie Solom, Nathan Maury, please stop at the office.
So photosynthesis does not generate energy for the plant. It only generates glucose. Now, what we're going to touch on in future lessons are these two reactions of photosynthesis. There are two reactions. There's what we call the light-dependent reaction, which requires light. And then there's the light-independent reaction, which does not require light. And if we take a look at this, here's a great visual of these two reactions. So we notice that light comes into the light reaction. And in the light reaction, we're going to take water and turn it into these molecules called NADPH and ATP. We're going to use the NADPH and ATP and carbon dioxide in the Kelvin cycle. And in that case, we're going to make sugar using the Kelvin cycle. Now, in the light reaction, our waste product is that oxygen. So that's an overview of photosynthesis, class. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. We'll see you soon.